Happy Monday, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon and evening as we started the 3 month season of meteorological winter yesterday. And that is the coldest 3 months on average across the U.S. and North America, running for 90 days from December 1st to February 28th. We are now officially in winter mode as hurricane season came to an end. And the talk now is going to be who's going to get the big snows this winter, who's not. And what I'm here to talk about is more in the shorter term, what to expect here leading up to December and the holidays. We're not going to talk about an entire season at this point because that's still a very difficult forecast to make. But I will say this, some of you this winter may be in for a bit of a shock as we didn't see much snow the last couple of winters, and that could start to change as we are neither in a strong El Nino or a strong La Nina. We're kind of in the neutral zone right now, so that gives us some opportunities for some snow in places that maybe haven't seen much of the last couple of winters. But this video, I do want to focus on the increasing threat of a pretty big storm for the beginning, or at least the first half of next week. This week is not going to be super unsettled across the country. Yes, it'll be cold, and yes, we'll have some snow in parts of the Great Lakes and interior Northeast, but next week, we start to get the Pacific jet stream back in action, meaning more moisture comes up. And that's going to mean we could see more significant amounts of rain, but also heavy snow farther north and west, and severe weather down south as well. So this video is going to focus a lot more on that, as well as what's going on in the shorter term in the second part of this video. Right now, we are continuing to watch this storm south of California. It's stuck, and it's not moving very quickly. Our subtropical jet stream is moving across the southern U.S., but it is not linking up with the cold air that's in place over the eastern and northern United States. Until these two come together, we just don't have the threat for a big storm. Now, next week, we will start to see some progress east from this system, and at that point, we're going to have to watch things a little bit more closely. Outside of that, I know some of you are watching here in the tropics. We are continuing to monitor some heavy rain affecting Central America with heavy amounts expected this upcoming week, but no development expected, even though the waters remain above average. Now, a closer look at the U.S. shows plenty of snowpack across the interior of the Northwest, plenty of snowpack over the Great Lakes and Canada, and we do have a clipper system right now that is dropping down through the midsection of the country, and that is going to continue on into the Carolinas tonight, where we could pick up some snowflakes overnight tonight in some areas that have not seen any snow in the last couple of winters. Not a big storm at this point. It lacks a lot of moisture, but one that we'll certainly be tracking. There's another feature behind it that's going to move through as a clipper system and head into this general direction towards the middle of this upcoming week. In the Gulf, we are monitoring some return of moisture, and you'll see rain will get pushed slowly northward into Texas, but no severe weather expected with this. And for the rest of the Southeast, it'll be quiet, it'll be cold, and no major weather expected. Those of you in the West, enjoy this quiet weather pattern while you can. It should be a pretty mild December, pretty good weather across California for the most part. Here's a look at how much snow has fallen across the Great Lakes. Let's say 57 inches in parts of Ashtabula County, northeast of Cleveland. We've seen amounts as high as 43 inches in Lake County in Ohio. And in Pennsylvania, the big winner in the Erie area is Girard at 59 inches of snow. Even more in parts of upstate New York, we saw 53 inches so far in Cattaraugus County. That's in Perrysburg. 54 inches nearby in Chautauqua County in Cassadaga. That is to the south and west of Buffalo. In the Buffalo area, 36 inches in Angola. Orchard Park, 28 inches. And the city of Buffalo, a little bit lower, as most of the band was south of the U, but we did pick up upwards of 6 to 12 inches. And off of Lake Ontario, almost 66 inches of snow fell in Copenhagen, not Denmark, but New York, with incredible amounts of snow there and more to come this week. So we did pretty well. I know a lot of those folks are going to be shut in for a while with incredible amounts of snow, but fortunately, the winds have not been super strong with that. Now, looking ahead here, we can see the cold trough in place. That is this big area of dark color in the east is going to remain in place. It'll actually weaken and lift out midweek, and a new system drops down into the eastern United States here on Thursday. It's going to stick around into the weekend, but we are going to eventually see some moderation next week. This is a look at next Monday, and you'll see the coldest of the air is finally moving out, and temperatures will return closer to average next week. But we have another storm system which is going to move into the center of the country. And that drops down and strengthens here on Tuesday and Wednesday. A couple days ago, I talked about the East Coast threat here and the threat of it coming farther south. Right now, it looks like that will not phase in with the southern feature. So instead of a big southern storm, it's probably more of a Great Lakes system. But nonetheless, we will have substantial weather to deal with next week that we need to talk about. And the time frame on this is probably the 10th through the 12th. And then it warms up later next week. And then we will continue to have some unsettled weather as we head towards the week leading up to Christmas. Here's a look at temperature anomalies. Very cold with respect to average in the southeast. Here comes the next wave of cold Thursday into Friday in some of the same exact areas, while the west will remain pretty mild through the weekend. Next week, it does moderate here. We see the cold moving away and milder temperatures Monday and Tuesday as that Gulf moisture returns out of the south. We will have more cold air, though, coming in behind this system, and take a look at what's to come here for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. Pretty strong front that should be lined up across the center of the country here, and it will warm up, yes, across New England, but that doesn't guarantee we have only rain in the forecast. As the averages continue to drop here in December, we are likely looking at some kind of a front-end winter storm here before a switchover. Just kind of a messy storm expected. And then you'll see the cold does follow it, so it does turn colder again next week towards Wednesday and Thursday, but only for a couple of days as we then warm right back up the following weekend. If we take a look at the jet stream here, we can see it dives so far south here that it just shuts out anything coming in from the Pacific. Now, as we move this along here into the weekend, you will see it begins to retreat northward again. This is Sunday, and we start to see some flow coming out of the southwest, which means the Pacific and the Gulf start to come back into play farther north. And next week, we see a pretty strong trough cutting through the center of the country. At this point, it's just one operational run, but this is some pretty strong wind flow aloft here. We do need to keep an eye on that for the return of potential severe weather here next week in parts of the southeast. So keep an eye on that, and that will eventually kick offshore here by Wednesday. But the pattern should stay somewhat unsettled, maybe not later next week, but the following weekend and beyond. We're going to see more and more storm tracks across the middle of the country, meaning more substantial weather that we need to track here heading up to about the 16th and 17th of December. Here's our operational run. You can see Clipper system dives south and east. That's the next wave of cold. Light moisture moving up into the Gulf states here for Wednesday and Thursday, but they never link up together. And what happens is we stay wet down south over the weekend, especially in Louisiana and Mississippi here. But at this point, we're not super concerned with severe weather. It's what's to come that we need to be a little bit more concerned with, and that's the system here on Tuesday. Now, if this is slower, like some of the other models are showing, then we will have more of a chance for severe weather, generally speaking, in this part of the country. But again, this is just a one-time forecast that can shift still. As we look at next Tuesday into Wednesday, we'll see a substantial low tracking up through the Great Lakes into eastern Canada. And on the backside of this system, we're going to see wind and snow more than likely. But the question mark, of course, right now is where is that going to be and how much snow will fall. And I will tell you this will probably change quite a bit more after today's video. And so any updates, of course, will come in the future videos. Here's what the GFS is showing with this particular run. And it's a pretty substantial storm from Missouri up into northern Quebec. We can see amounts going past 1 foot in just a couple of days here. So this one is centered on Chicago and into parts of Michigan and up into Ontario and Quebec. But, you know, we can see this certainly shift west and east, as I expect it probably will. The Canadian model has the same storm, but it, of course, has it in a different location. Here's a look at the beginning of next week. We'll see snow across the Rockies, cold air swinging through the north and west. And you can see things start to come together, but a little bit slower and farther down. And the Canadian, which does have a track record of probably being too cold here, shows a winter storm threat much farther south and west down into Oklahoma and Texas and New Mexico. So it looks quite a bit different than the GFS, which has this storm up into here at this point. The Canadian's a day and a half behind, and it's got active severe weather potential, but it also has that winter storm threat to it as well as we get to about the 11th, which would be the middle of next week. So we're going to track that for you. The European doesn't look the same as the other two models. It never does, at least not that far out. But what you will see is that the moisture is returning to the south early next week. And it's slower with this trough back in here. It doesn't dig it all the way down like the Canadian has. So whatever happens in the plains stays detached from what's going on down south. But this is next Monday night and Tuesday, a week from today, and you can see it does have that heavy rain and severe weather threat with it. But it is not the complete system we see from the GFS. So it does, by the way, have more storm threats. Here's next weekend, and here's another one behind it. So the bottom line at this point is that after this cold pattern that we're in comes to an end early next week, we start to see a more active weather pattern, more substantial storms, and probably bigger amounts of precipitation. So at that point, you'll want to certainly watch more closely if you're in the south for heavy rain and severe weather threats. You're going to want to watch more in the Great Lakes and in the Plains and Rockies for snow threats. And in between, maybe in Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas, we need to watch for potential ice or other winter storm threats at that point. So we're going to back this up and just look real quick at the shorter term. We do continue to have lake effect snow advisories and warnings around the Great Lakes. We have a freeze warning for the Okefenokee Swamp area all the way down to just north and west of Orlando. And we do have a winter weather advisory across the slopes of East Tennessee, and we will have some snow overnight in western North Carolina as well. Let's take a look at that system real quick. Just a quick disturbance, not a big snowmaker, but we will see some snow here this evening in western Kentucky, maybe in the Nashville area of Tennessee, southern and central Indiana, not including the lake effect that's farther north. And this is going to move through pretty quickly. We're only talking about a 3 to 4 hour event, if that, and then by morning it's all out of here. By the way, snow totals here for you are not super high, but aside from the lake band that comes through here, generally speaking, not much falling here, maybe an inch on the grass, and that's primarily going to be across the Cumberland Plateau. I am going to shift this east so that we can take a closer look at what else is to come here farther east. And you can see here around, let me get the time up for you, 8 o'clock Eastern time. It is moving into eastern parts of Tennessee and Kentucky, and then moving across the border into the Carolinas here around 9, 10 o'clock tonight. And we do see around the Uwharrie National Forest and around the Charlotte area, a little bit of potential for some snow. Not a big deal. Honestly, if I'm in Charlotte, I'm not setting my alarm for 1 a.m. to go out and see a few flakes, but don't be shocked if it does coat the grass in some of these areas. The ground certainly is cold enough to support that, but what we're lacking here is a whole lot of upper level support. So this slides by. It's aimed more at the Fayetteville and Southern Pines areas than it is, say, Raleigh and Greensboro, and it should fade by morning, so I don't think we're going to see schools canceled or anything like that, but it will definitely be cold during the morning tomorrow morning, colder than it was this morning, but that's out of here pretty quickly. And our snow potential outside of the mountains is not significant. The NAM here, the Kuchera, it's trying to go close to an inch of snow, but honestly, if we actually take a look at the snow depth, outside of the Uwharrie Mountains here, which could pick up a quick half inch on the grass, it's not much. It may be enough to maybe coat the grass in places like Fayetteville and Sanford and Southern Pines, and maybe even the Charlotte area and Concord and up to Hickory. So just something to keep an eye on there. The higher amounts are confined mainly to the mountains here. We're talking about a couple of inches or less. And in the Cumberland Plateau, the highlands of East Kentucky, we could see locally an inch of snow as well. So, hey, we'll take it. It hasn't snowed much in the Carolinas. And where I live in Raleigh, we haven't seen a flake in over 2 years. So we may see one overnight. That's about it. All right, looking ahead here at the next system, you can see our clipper dives into the Great Lakes region tomorrow night and into the day on Wednesday. And there'll be a front-running area of snow that's primarily focused on our neighbors to the north here in Canada. But behind that, we are going to see more substantial snow moving in Wednesday afternoon and night across the Great Lakes, and also spreading all the way down into Ohio, West Virginia, and western PA. We'll also see that snow across New England and parts of the Northeast here Wednesday night into Thursday. And I will take you east so that you can see that. Here it comes. Lake effect comes to an end Wednesday, and then here comes the overrunning snow, which could impact places like New York City and in Connecticut and Vermont and Mass here for the evening hours on Wednesday. There'll be some rain at the coast here briefly until that colder air arrives Thursday morning, and then we're going to see that switch over here to lingering snow. And there's potential for some accumulation all the way to the coast out of this, and you will see, let me back it up here. This is Wednesday night. Generally, the blend shows light amounts in North Jersey and in southern New England, but some amounts heading into Thursday morning on Long Island and around New York City, generally an inch or less. Poconos are going to see a lot more than that, and the mountains of New England could see between 6 and 12 inches, locally more in New Hampshire. And obviously, we're going to have lake effect snow, which again dumps quite a bit of snow on the snow belt areas here through Friday morning. Looking at the rest of the Midwest, here's our blend of models as well, showing substantial snow around the UP of Michigan through the end of the week. We could see 1 to 2 feet again, even more across parts of the Huron snow belt here and the Georgian Bay, where locally we could see 2 to 3 feet of snow falling. But outside of the snow belts, it's not looking like much here. You know, I showed you the system tonight, not going to do a whole lot. The mountains here will pick up a few inches. Places like Snowshoe and getting into far western Maryland and up into the Johnstown area and maybe just north and west of State College, we are going to see some snow falling, but outside of the snow belts, it's not looking like a whole lot. So that's what we're looking at this week. Looking ahead towards the holidays, I do want to at least tease you all with what's to come. You'll see it's not exactly a warm pattern in the east, but it's not going to be as brutally cold either. This is the week leading up to Christmas. And we are still below average, potentially, for much of the eastern United States here, except on the Gulf Coast. It will be warmer there, in places like Texas, Louisiana, and Florida, but we could be a few degrees above average. But one thing is for sure here, all the warmth in the west is going to gradually give way to a cooler pattern. And this could mean some more unsettled weather as well as we head into early parts of January. This is at least a little bit more promising if you like to see some snow here. Looking at precipitation trends as well, it's dry for the next week, but then we start to get into that more active pattern. This is leading up to just before Christmas, and near to above average precipitation expected for the central and eastern United States, as well as the Pac Northwest, where I don't think we're going to see a whole lot going on with respect to average is going to be in this zone in here. But this zone in here could be open season for several storms, maybe some severe weather down south, and maybe some more substantial winter weather in parts of the Northeast and into the Great Lakes as well. We're going to track that for you all. And you can see here the very uncertain 46-day snow forecast does indicate at least some promise of something here in parts of the Northeast and maybe even into parts of the Mid-South. But again, we're taking a 46-day forecast and spitting out the average. I do expect that this forecast will not play out the way exactly it shows. But you can see here we are going to be heading into snowier times, as you would expect this time of the year. So more of that to come. But as always, I appreciate everybody's time today. Hope you all have a great week coming back from the holiday. Hope everybody's safe out there. And I want to give all the thanks and all the honor and glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Just give God all the credit if you're alive today. I mean, that is a blessing itself. It's a blessing to be able to live and to live in a place where you can make a difference in other people's life. And I was reading with some colleagues this morning, Romans 10, when Paul tells the church of Rome about faith. Romans 10:9 through 13 says, if you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is with your heart that you believe and are justified, and it is with your mouth that you profess your faith and are saved. As Scripture says, anyone who believes in him will never be put to shame. For there is no difference between Jew and Gentile. The same Lord is Lord of all and richly blesses all who call on him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. And salvation is a gift. It is not something that you and I can just earn. It is something that is gifted to us, but we have to make that choice. I made that choice about 11 years ago that I was going to follow Jesus and that eternal life is there for me. And I pray that it's there for you as well, that you can somehow see that no matter all the bad that's happened in your life, that there is still good out there. There's still a light in dark times, and that light is Jesus Christ, our Savior. If you have any prayer requests, I will spend some time in prayer for you here tonight, tomorrow, and I expect to be back on in the afternoon tomorrow. I hope you all have a great Monday. See you soon. God bless.